Welcome everybody to Inspiration Tube channel. Our channel is your way for motivation, inspiration, and success. Remember, you can make the change. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.
Remember, you can make the change.
85 spring quotes to make your soul bloom. After the cold and dark days of winter, the spring season brings new life and fresh hope to the world. These spring quotes will do the same for you. After thawing snow and blooming flowers, spring means we are finally able to enjoy time outside again. Though spring might not look quite as idealized as this where you are, it is a welcome period of rebirth and inspiration all the same. So here are the best spring quotes to inspire you to make the most of this season of rebirth and rejuvenation. Top 10 Spring Quotes. Spring work is going on with joyful enthusiasm. John Muir. Blossom by blossom the spring begins. Algernon Charles Swinburne. Every spring is the only spring, a perpetual astonishment. Ellis Peters. You can cut all the flowers but you cannot keep spring from coming. Pablo Neruda. No matter how long the winter, spring is sure to follow. English proverb. Spring is nature's way of saying, let's party. Robin Williams. Spring is when you feel like whistling, even with a shoe full of slush. Doug Larson. April hath put a spirit of youth in everything. William Shakespeare. Quotes about spring. In the spring, at the end of the day, you should smell like dirt. Margaret Atwood. Spring unlocks the flowers to paint the laughing soil. Bishop Reginald Haber. Spring, a lovely reminder of how beautiful change can truly be. Anonymous. Spring makes its own statement, so loud and clear that the gardener seems to be only one of the instruments, not the composer. Jeffrey B. Charlesworth. In the spring, I have counted 136 different kinds of weather inside of 24 hours. Mark Twain. Now every field is clothed with grass, and every tree with leaves, now the woods put forth their blossoms, and the year assumes its gay attire. Virgil. Is the spring coming? Dodit is the sun shining on the rain and the rain falling on the sunshine. Francis Hodgson Burnett, The Secret Garden. In springtime, love is carried on the breeze. Watch out for flying passion and kisses whizzing by your head. Emma Racine Defleur. Some old-fashioned things like fresh air and sunshine are hard to beat. Laura Ingalls Wilder. Don't wait for someone to bring you flowers. Plant your own garden and decorate your own soul. Luther Burbank. Spring won't let me stay in this house any longer. I must get out and breathe the air deeply again. Gustav Mahler. When spring came, even the false spring, there were no problems except where to be happiest. The only thing that could spoil a day was people, and if you could keep from making engagements, each day had no limits. People were always the limiters of happiness except for the very few that were as good as spring itself. Ernest Hemingway. If people did not love one another, I really don't see what use there would be in having any spring. Victor Hugo. It was one of those March days when the sun shines hot and the wind blows cold, when it is summer in the light, and winter in the shade. Charles Dickens. That is one good thing about this world. There are always sure to be more springs. L. M. Montgomery. Nostalgia in reverse, the longing for yet another strange land, grew especially strong in spring. Vladimir Nabokov. Spring will come and so will happiness. Hold on. Life will get warmer. Anita Krisen. It's spring fever. That is what the name of it is. And when you've got it, you want, oh, you don't quite know what it is you do want, but it just fairly makes your. Science has never drummed up quite as effective a tranquilizing agent as a sunny spring day. W. Earl Hall. What a strange thing to be alive beneath cherry blossoms. Kobayashi Isa. Nature gives to every time and season some beauties of its own. Charles Dickens. I love spring anywhere, but if I could choose I would always greet it in a garden. Ruth Stout. If you've never been thrilled to the very edges of your soul by a flower in spring bloom, maybe your soul has never been in bloom. Otto Favio. The earth laughs in flowers. Ralph Waldo Emerson. If we had no winter, the spring would not be so pleasant. If we did not sometimes taste adversity, prosperity would not be so welcome. Anne Bradstreet. I suppose the best kind of spring morning is the best weather God has to offer. Dodie Smith. The flowers of late winter and early spring occupy places in our hearts well out of proportion to their size. Gertrude Wister. We can't possibly have a summer love. So many people have tried that the names become proverbial. Summer is only the unfulfilled promise of spring, a charlatan in place of the warm balmy nights I dream of in April. It's a sad season of life without growth, it has no day. F. Scott Fitzgerald, This Side of Paradise. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? Percy Bysshe Shelley. Aprils have never meant much to me, autumns seem that season of beginning, spring. Truman Capote. Because the bird song might be pretty, but it's not for you they sing, and if you think my winter is too cold, you don't deserve my spring. Aaron Hansen. A kind word is like a spring day. Russian proverb. I enjoy the spring more than the autumn now. One does, I think, as one gets older. Virginia Woolf. It was such a spring day as breathes into a man an ineffable yearning, a painful sweetness, a longing that makes him stand motionless, looking at the leaves or grass, and fling out his arms to embrace he knows not what. John Galsworthy. Can words describe the fragrance of the very breath of spring? Neltia Blanchin. Or maybe spring is the season of love and fall the season of mad lust. Spring for flirting but fall for the untamed delicious wild thing. Elizabeth Cohen. Always it's spring and everyone's in love and flowers pick themselves. E. Cummings. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host, of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. William Wordsworth. Spring is the fountain of love for thirsty winter. Munia Khan. Spring's greatest joy beyond a doubt is when it brings the children out. Edgar Guest. Spring shows what God can do with a drab and dirty world. Virgil A. Craft. My favorite weather is bird chirping weather. Terry Gillimetz. The coming of spring. The first real day of spring is like the first time a boy holds your hand. A flood of skin-tingling warmth consumes you, and everything shines with a fresh, colorful glow, making you forget that anything as cold and harsh as winter ever existed. Rochelle E. Goodrich. People ask me what I do in winter when there's no baseball. I'll tell you what I do. I stare out the window and wait for spring. Roger Hornsby. The beautiful spring came, and when nature resumes her loveliness, the human soul is apt to revive also. Harriet Ann Jacobs. Behold, my friends, the spring is come, the earth has gladly received the embraces of the sun, and we shall soon see the results of their love. Sitting Bull. The spring wakes us, nurtures us and revitalizes us. How often does your spring come? If you are a prisoner of the calendar, it comes once a year. If you are creating authentic power, it comes frequently, or very frequently. Gary Zukov. The first day of spring is one thing, and the first spring day is another. The difference between them is sometimes as great as a month. Henry Van Dyke. The sun was warm but the wind was chill, you know how it is with an April day. Robert Frost. April prepares her green traffic light and the world thinks go. Christopher Morley. Never cut a tree down in the wintertime. Never make a negative decision in the low time. Never make your most important decisions when you are in your worst moods. Wait. Be patient. The storm will pass. The spring will come. Robert H. Schuller. The promise of spring's arrival is enough to get anyone through the bitter winter. Jen Zielinski. But only a person in the depths of despair neglected to look beyond winter to the spring that inevitably followed, bringing back color and life and hope. Mary Balog. It is spring again. The earth is like a child that knows poems. Rainer Maria Rilke. Come with me into the woods, where spring is advancing, as it does, no matter what, not being singular or a particular, but one of the forever gifts, and certainly visible. Mary Oliver. I had always planned to make a large painting of the early spring, when the first leaves are at the bottom of the trees, and they seem to float in space in a wonderful way. But the arrival of spring can't be done in one picture. David Hockney. You make me feel so young, you make me feel so spring has sprung. Frank Sinatra, you make me feel so young, rebirth and renewal. To be interested in the changing seasons is a happier state of mind than to be hopelessly in love with spring. George Santayana. I believe in process. I believe in 4 seasons. I believe that winter's tough, but spring's coming. I believe that there's a growing season. And I think that you realize that in life, you grow. You get better. Steve Sutherland. Spring passes and one remembers one's innocence. Summer passes and one remembers one's exuberance. Autumn passes and one remembers one's reverence. Winter passes and one remembers one's perseverance. Yoko Ono. The day the Lord created hope was probably the same day he created spring. Bernard Williams. I think that no matter how old or infirm I may become, I will always plant a large garden in the spring. Who can resist the feelings of hope and joy that one gets from participating in nature's rebirth? Edward G. Obie. It is spring again. The earth is like a child that knows poems by heart. Rainer Maria Rilke. I glanced out the window at the signs of spring. The sky was almost blue, the trees were almost budding, the sun was almost bright. Millard Kaufman. No matter how chaotic it is, wildflowers will still spring up in the middle of nowhere. Sheryl Crow. Spring drew on, and a greenness grew over those brown beds, which, freshening daily, suggested the thought that hope traversed them at night, and left each morning brighter traces of her steps. Charlotte Bronte. From the end spring new beginnings. Pliny the Elder. Springtime is the land awakening. The March winds are the morning yawn. Louis Grizzard. Never yet was a springtime, when the buds forgot to bloom. Margaret Elizabeth Sangster. To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow. Audrey Hepburn. It's spring again. I can hear the birds sing again. See the flowers start to bud. See young people fall in love. Lou Rawls, spring again. Flowers don't worry about how they're going to bloom. They just open up and turn toward the light, and that makes them beautiful. Jim Carrey. The magic in new beginnings is truly the most powerful of them all. Josiah Martin. I want to do to you what spring does with the cherry trees. Pablo Neruda. If you have a garden and a library, you have everything you need. Marcus Tullius Cicero. We hope you enjoyed these spring quotes and thoughts on the joys of springtime.
Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos. Remember, you have the choice.